Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my cell and molecular biology class. We will be spending the next several weeks diving deeply into the molecular signaling pathways that regulate cellular division. Are y'all excited? You ready? All right, not terribly, and so maybe I should start over. Cancer is a disease that affects 1 in 3 women and 1 in 2 men in the United States. So look around you. Undoubtedly, we have some survivors in the room among us. And cancer is fundamentally a disease of the molecular signaling pathways that regulate cell division. Now are you interested? Well, my students certainly are. They're interested enough to try to understand this molecular wiring diagram, enough to read a highly challenging primary literature, interested enough to tackle graduate-level problems in a sophomore-level class, and they tell me interested enough to work harder than they ever have before in a science class. When we frame our content of our courses in a broader context, students can find meaning and motivation. They see where this learning fits with who they are and maybe even who they want to become. They become motivated, and for me, motivation is the most powerful learning tool that I know. And this is a good part of the reason why we're here this week working together to integrate ethical reasoning and intercultural global learning throughout our general education curriculum. Because I really believe that no subject exists in a vacuum, and no subject is devoid of an ethical or intercultural context, and that's what we're working on together. I spent a good part of my research career as part of a team building and testing mathematical models that are based on ordinary differential equations describing the process of cellular division. And so I really felt confident teaching cancer biology as an expert to my undergraduates because I was a real contributor to this body of research. Until this semester, I lost my father to multiple myeloma. And that's when I stood in front of my introductory cancer biology class and completely shut down in front of 200 students. My dad's insurance company had denied him the very life-saving treatments we were discussing. And for the first time, cancer was no longer an equation or a statistic. As teaching faculty, we often take our role as domain expert to mean that we're expected to know everything, and that it's our job to transfer that knowledge from our brain to our students. In cancer biology, there were nearly 5,000 relevant articles published just this past week. And yet the incidence of cancer is still growing, and we can't save the lives of our own parents. And that may be why humility comes pretty naturally to me, and I'm really eager and willing to give my students more responsibility for their learning, and maybe even to learn from them. I can help, but the knowledge making is by and large their responsibility. Just as no one becomes a great musician simply by listening to the masters, and no coach would ever do the workout for their athletes, our students will learn to reason as scientists, ethically and with intercultural and global awareness, only by exercising those skills through guided practice. When you ask your students to integrate ethical and intercultural learning with scientific reasoning, prepare to be amazed. I was. They made me proud in their ability to demonstrate a deep working knowledge of cancer biology, and prouder still when they developed a storybook to make that knowledge accessible to a child dealing with cancer. Or prepared an up-to-date summary of the literature for a rare cancer like medulloblastoma, and then surprised me by also making a cancer survival kit for the young patient, complete with a teddy bear, a bandana, and mints, because this student knew firsthand what a terrible aftertaste chemotherapy leaves in one's mouth. I returned one final project to a group. They'd made a lovely series of pamphlets about the hallmarks of cancer for a lay audience. These are great, I said, but why didn't you make a web page so you could reach everybody? Dr. Sible, you told us to target a real audience, and ours was the housekeeping staff. They make $20,000 a year, and many don't have internet. Our research showed that the best way to reach this audience was to put pamphlets in a doctor's office. Oh, that's great. I tried to recover and offer to help them find a doctor who might use their pamphlets. They said thanks, but they're already being used by a clinic in Pulaski. And by the way, thanks for the A. That's really nice, too. I ask my students to blog, which gives them a voice, and I discover that they are victims and survivors. And they write things such as, cancer, in my opinion, should always be told in the first person. I learned that they're grappling with human embryonic stem cell research as Christians and Muslims, Democrats, Republicans, even Canadians. Through a student's blog, I realized I made a terrible mistake one year and gave the lung cancer case to a student whose mom was battling stage 4 non-small cell lung carcinoma. I suggested the group switch topics, and she said, "Please, don't take this away from me. I know more about this cancer than anyone in the room, including you." And then she fiercely advocated until she convinced the entire table, including those representing the insurance company, that this patient deserved access to an experimental and rather costly new treatment. And I was just sort of overcome by her bravery and her skill. I teach in a classroom and with a pedagogy called Scale Up, which stands for Student-Centered Active Learning Environment for Undergraduate Programs. I lecture a little, but mostly I coach. As my student Whitney once said, in the Scale Up classroom, everyone is a teacher and everyone's a student. We learn and then we share. That has to be my favorite part. My assessment friends have been studying motivation in my class to figure out why it's so darn high. And they use Dr. Brett Jones' music model. And they've found that the students feel empowered, they see the work as very important, and they regard it as interesting. But it turns out the most important factor was the fact that the students know that I really care. And I think more importantly, the assignments explicitly put them in a position where they're able to care and put that caring in service of others. There is no I in cancer, but there is the word can. And my students learn that they can make a difference, even in the face of this still incurable disease. Thank you.